Hi, it's me, Dan Ciamatero, writer and artist of Snot-Ball Comix, an OG Nintendo file. So, what did I think of the new Super Mario Galaxy movie? Well, pull up a toadstool and let's find out.
Snot-Ball Comix spoils the Super Mario Galaxy movie. Hey, paisanos! Here we go again! Colors, flashing lights, more colors, and fan service out the literal ass.
So, did this one get a level up? Or is it game over for the sequel? Well, I can tell you, much like the last movie, all the critics here are full of shit. But that doesn't mean it's all peaches. So let's roll up our pant legs and climb on into this sewer. Alright, so let's get down to brass tacks here, folks. As I mentioned in my intro, the critics are pretty much 100% full of shit when it comes to this movie. The first criticism that I hear over and over again is just plain bullshit. There is very much a story in this movie, and everybody who tells you otherwise is just lying to you. There is in fact several stories going on in this movie. And while some of them do thin out in the middle, and one or two of them fizzles out completely, we'll get back to that here in a bit, they do absolutely exist. There is an inciting incident at the beginning of the film, there is a climax near the middle, and there is a resolution at the end for most of the story points. So anybody telling you that there isn't a story here is just sort of making things up, pretty much out of sour grapes for whatever reason they seem to want to dog on this movie. Mostly, in my opinion, because it's fun and true to the story, which are things that critics don't really seem to like to see in movies these days. So obviously, the largest shovelfuls of criticism that are being heaped upon this movie seem to center around the idea that it's some sort of a nostalgia play. And I'm not going to pretend for 1 second that this film is not soaked from start to finish with references and Easter eggs and member berries up and down. It's pretty obvious that it is, and it would be really silly of me to pretend otherwise. But I think that criticism overall is a little unfair considering what this movie is, and more than a little hypocritical when you consider the company that it's in. You see, the Super Mario Bros. Movie is a franchise that's turning 40 just this year. And up until now, it has not had a satisfying, or for that matter, even coherent footprint in the media outside of the video game itself. With the exception of one failed theatrical release in the 90s, and an 80s cartoon that is far more curiosity than it is classic, this property here has never really seen an official canon up until this point. And so these two movies right now are pretty much it. We're starting from the ground floor. So holding it against this movie for its nostalgia, essentially making the accusation that it's treading old territory, is really not actually true. This is a new movie, or a new series of movies, and it deserves to be treated as such. Because every generation has had one of these movies, at least since I was a kid. The Superman movie that came out in '78, the Batman movie in '89, the Spider-Man movie in 2002, all three of those properties were either just celebrating their 40th anniversary that year, or had previously celebrated it a few years before. And in all of those cases, with the exception of Batman, were seeing their first time on the big screen. So they'd had decades of material to pull from when they finally got up on the screen, and they had generations of fans waiting to see that new arrival. And so this isn't anything new. In fact, we're just about to go through this again with the Masters of the Universe movie. And everybody seems to be treating that with a, oh, finally sort of attitude, and not the, oh, this again sort of bit that we're getting against the Mario movie. So it really doesn't seem all that fair. So obviously, that has to be all of the criticisms, right? I mean, what else is there to talk about? We talked about story, and we talked about production. There can't possibly be anything else that the critics could be complaining about. Well, you would think that, dear viewer, and of course you would be wrong, because we're living in the hellish dystopia of 2020 whatever, where critics can't be satisfied just dogging on a movie on its own merits. They always have to drag out some sort of meta-commentary about how this film's success is going to affect the failure of some other movie that they'd rather see excel. And I have this to say about that. I went a few months ago to see Zootopia, and I really, really liked that movie. It was a fantastic film. And I went a few weeks ago to see the Super Mario Brothers movie, and I really liked that film. I had a lot of fun at it, I enjoyed myself, I felt validated for decades of enjoyment of this property. Is it true that two different parts of my brain lit up when I saw these two different movies? Absolutely 100%. I couldn't possibly tell you which experience I enjoyed more because I enjoyed them both on a very different level. It's very obvious that my higher IQ was going to go to the movie with more of a social commentary and a better narrative structure. But the junk food side of my brain is always going to get excited seeing lights and colors and really, really good animation. I don't think I should have to choose between the two. I think it's really, really unfair that people are trying to steal those options away, which is exactly what these people are doing when they get mad about the success of one of these bigger movies. In my opinion, I'm perfectly content with the idea of my id or my superego going to the movies and spending my hard-earned $20 and both of them not getting a hot dog. I don't see where there's a problem with that, and I certainly don't think it's anybody else's business whether I or you get a chance to go do that. And, since we're on the subject, when it comes to something like the movie Goat, that movie looks fucking stupid. Or, to be a little bit more generous, that movie looks fucking stupid to me. It may not look that way to you. It may not look that way to your kids or some other people who want to go see it. And I wish that film absolutely no ill will whatsoever. I very much hope, for the sake of the people who worked on it, that that movie finds its audience and that it gets a good reception in the theaters. But the thing is that it's a new product. It needs to find its audience. It has to earn that for itself. It's not the Super Mario Brothers problem that that film may or may not do as well as it does. They earned their audience. They gave us generation after generation of fun, exciting experiences, and that has afforded them the ability to make a somewhat thin, somewhat forgettable, dopey movie that people just like to go sit and have fun watching. Having said all of that, let's get into some of this movie's faults. Because let's face it, Citizen Kane, it is not. This movie is obviously not perfect in any way, and for the most part it's relatively forgettable. You might have a really good time at the movie theater, but the first movie will probably be the one that you kind of pull out and watch from time to time, and this one may get lost to time. There's really nothing wrong with that. It happens to the sequels, and really all that matters is if you have a little bit of fun when you watch it the first time, which I could go ahead and tell you that you probably will. This is a beautifully animated film. There are some amazing, amazing visual parts in it, and it's really cynical to pretend like that isn't good enough to get people excited about a movie. Lots of people worked on this thing, and the fact that it looks fun and playful should be a credit to the film. but there's a lot of things that discredit this film, and without being too cheesy about it, I think it's fair that I say a lot of those things have to do with the plot and the story. But again, it makes absolutely no sense to me that people say that this movie doesn't have a story, because it does have several story points, and they all, for the most part, start off at the beginning and wrap up at the end. We do lose a few along the way, and some of them get really thin right in the middle, but they're all there, and there's really quite a bit there to work with. Some of them are really good. I like all of the stuff with Bowser and Bowser Jr. It's a lot of fun. There's a really, really cool puppet show scene that is fantastic. Anybody who's watched me for a bit now knows how I feel about puppets, so this was a beautiful addition to this film. But the stuff with Peach and Rosalina is also pretty well done. It is well-treaded territory in the children's cartoon realm, and it certainly isn't surprising or shocking in any way, but it definitely adds a little bit to the film. It gives it some teeth for biting into the plot, and also kickstarts the plot to begin with. Which, I will say this about this movie compared to the last one, and that's that this is the better Super Mario narrative. It starts off with a princess who gets kidnapped, and ends up with the lava bridge boss fight with Bowser from the first game. It's all a very satisfying arc that hits all of the points that the first movie clearly tried to avoid. And, while we're talking about things that the first movie tried to avoid, this movie does pay off the love story between Peach and Mario. And it's really nice to see it here, considering how much they easily could have tried to avoid it again, because we all know how modern movies try to avoid those things or take them out completely. But here, they confronted it head on. They made it a little fun, a little dorky. It was nice to see Mario, kind of the dork that he is, considering that his fans are all dorks to begin with. So it did give you a little catharsis where you could resonate with that character. But again, it was a little thin, and every single time they actually tried to throw a wrench into that relationship, they failed miserably, to the point where they just simply gave up on one of the plot points, and they gave up on that plot point immediately. It happened so quickly that you would feel like you were in the writer's room when they were throwing the idea out, but nope. It's right fucking there on the screen, staring you in the face and leaving you scratching your head and going, what the fuck happened there? And that was all a little weird. And that scene, of course, brings me to one of the other things that's not really great about this movie, and it's the inclusion of Star Fox. Star Fox is pretty fucking cool. Obviously, anybody's going to want to see him, but the studio doesn't know whether or not they can bank on that character because he's only had 1 or 2 games. He only really kind of exists as a zombie in the Smash Brothers universe, which is essentially a Mario universe, and so the studio obviously wanted to try him out here in a safe spot. I can understand why they would do something like that, but it was stupid, and it did not work in this movie. And a big part of the reason why it didn't work in this movie is because they sabotaged that storyline. Again, instantaneously. They set up in the movie that Star Fox was clearly going to be some sort of a rival to Mario, and they heavily implied that that rivalry would center around Princess Peach. And the way they did it had a very, very nice Han Solo, Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia love triangle, but they killed it right away with a throwaway joke that went by so fast that you almost couldn't believe that it had happened on the screen. You kept waiting for that plot to recycle itself, and it absolutely never did, to the point where you had to go back to the scene where they killed it and think, wait a minute, did they actually kill this? And yes, they did, and it made the whole thing really kind of stupid. The character doesn't belong in that universe. Suggesting that there's a multiverse in the same movie that's saying that there's a huge galaxy out there is also really stupid. We've already seen that Mario lives in the same world as Donkey Kong, who's an anthropomorphic monkey, and there's really no reason that he can't live in a galaxy that also has an anthropomorphic fox and frog and bunny and all the other shit that lives out there. The Nintendo world is big enough for all of these characters to live in it in a normal environment. It does not have to go the way of the multiverse, and it's really just doing so to hedge its bets and probably to be able to put Zelda in a world that doesn't have Mario in it, which again is very silly considering that Zelda are people and princesses and kingdoms and all that sort of shit, and so is Mario. They always seem to fit together really well. Just put them on different planets that's far enough away from one another. But this movie is very clearly trying to set something up, and that setup definitely detracts from a lot of the other things going on in this movie. However, there is one thing that it does not detract from, and the people out there that are saying this should really shut the fuck up because you're really being stupid. And that has to do with this controversy surrounding Rosalina. Stop it. You're being dumb. Rosalina was cool enough in this movie, and she did exactly what she was supposed to do. She got herself fucking kidnapped by the bad guy. Good for her. And I'm not saying this in some sort of incendiary way. I'm not trying to trigger anybody. I have absolutely nothing whatsoever against strong female characters. If she wants to kick a little ass in Super Mario Bros. 3, by all means let her. More girl power to her. I'm sure that Wario is going to have it coming. But right now, get your sexy haircut into that dungeon and wait for your sister to come and get you out. Your sister, the girl with the girl power from the movie before. Is that not enough for you people? I know that Daisy's probably coming along in the next movie, and Daisy kicks ass. She's my favorite character. I use her every single time I play the game. But you know what? Let her get fucking kidnapped like all the rest of them. That's the point of this story. It just makes it kind of more fun. And after she manages to escape, then they can all go play tennis or something. I don't know, and I don't care. But the people that are complaining that Rosalina got sold out in this movie are missing the point. She was the MacGuffin. The characters of this movie were the characters of the Super Mario Bros. 2 game. This movie was about an adventure gone on by Mario, Luigi, Peach, and Toad. That was the way this movie was set up, and that was the movie that we got. And if it's good enough to happen to Luigi in his own fucking movie, then it should be plenty good enough to happen to Rosalina in what's apparently supposed to be hers. I said some good things about it. I said some bad things about it. So where do I stand on the Super Mario Bros. Galaxy movie? What's the verdict? Well, if I had to give it a number grade, which I suppose I do, since I asked you all to watch this video in the first place, I'd probably go ahead and give it about a 6 out of a 10. It's a fun, bubblegum, Fruit Loop adventure movie that really does make you feel like a kid again in a way that a lot of these movies try to do and don't quite pull off. So go see it, and then leave, and kind of leave it in the rearview mirror. You're not going to be revisiting this one over and over again, not even as much as you might the last one. But at least now you have 2 Super Mario Bros. Movies that you can go and watch if you want to, which is a hell of a lot more than we've had in the past, and I'm happy to see it. Because I've always wanted a couple of Super Mario Bros. Movies to watch time and again, and all you really want with these movies are the right colors, the right characters, the right references, all of the member berries. And you're gonna get it here, just like you're gonna get it in the threequel when that finally comes out.
Hey gang, if you like what you saw, don't forget to tell me in the comments below. Like, share, subscribe, and for more reviews, deep dives, as well as comedy sketches and original animations. Hit the alert bell so you don't miss a thing.